Hello, everybody. Bill Platt here, and I just want to have a quick conversation with you about your book descriptions today. There's a lot of factors that go into your book description, and I want to discuss some of that with you, and how it impacts the sales of your book. Rob Howard and I are doing on January 3rd, 2017, a training session called the Handshake Method. It's a training class about writing great book descriptions and selling your books. I'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But the sales page for that is authorbooktraining.com/handshake, HANDSHAKE. But in the meantime, I wanted to discuss with you some of what we're going to discuss in the class. So you better understand where we're coming from with this. And there are basically five elements that go into whether you're able to sell your book or not. And those are your book cover, book title, price, book description, and reviews. And the book cover and book title primarily serve as a link to your sales page, your book listing. And so when people see the title or they see the cover, they click the link to go in and take a look at your book. The price itself is only a matter of is what you're offering equal to the value of what you're offering equal to the price you're asking. Um, and then your book description is the primary part, and the reviews is your fallback. Now, people say, how can I sell books if I don't have reviews? Well, the answer is easy. You don't need reviews to sell your book, and let me explain why. Um, when people read your book description, that should be enough to tip them over the edge and want to click that buy button. If you have a strong book description, people aren't even going to look at the reviews. They're going to go directly to the buy button. It's only when you have a weak book description that people need to look at the reviews. So they read your review and they like it and they want to buy your book, they hit the buy button. If they read your book description and they're not sure about your book, then they scroll down and they look at the reviews. And so the reviews are there to catch those people who are trying to get away, the people who weren't convinced that they should buy your book, and they're looking at those reviews, determining if a reviewer told them what they needed to know to make the buying decision. And I was having a conversation last week with a fellow, and we were talking about book descriptions, and I told him, the issue is that if you have a great book, you owe it to your customers to provide a great book description, because without the great book description, they don't know that they need to buy your book. But you could have the next Harry Potter series and have the worst description possible, and even though the book is equal to Harry Potter, it won't have sales equal to Harry Potter because nobody knows that they should be buying your book because you got a poorly written book description. So this is what we want to overcome. We want to create a better book description so that we can increase the number of sales we're getting from our books. So ideally, if you have a great book description, you don't need any reviews on your book. And so you need to sell copies in order, and you do need to sell copies in order to get reviews. With some books, you get 1,000 people buying or reading your book before you get one review. In some cases, 100 people will read your book before you get one review. So you need to sell more copies to get more reviews, and then the reviews will help those people who weren't convinced by your description to go ahead and make that purchase decision, because the reviewers are answering the questions you didn't answer in your book description. So that's the primary role of the different elements on your sales page. And I say sales page, it's your book listing page, but really it is a sales page. And people don't like to talk about sales pages. They don't like to think that they're selling anything. And I'll explain to you why that's the case and how you can overcome it. But the thing of it is, your book listing is a sales page. The reality is we can't call it anything else. We can probably say that it's a book listing and Maybe you'll think that's okay to write a great book description, but you're lying to yourself if you're telling yourself that that's not a sales page. And so here's the deal. This is why everybody is kind of hesitant about writing a great book description, because they don't want to be a salesperson. We're writers, we write books, but we're not salespeople. We are not marketers, and we haven't the desire to learn sales or marketing, but we still need more people to buy our books. And that's a common thing. A lot of people feel that way about it. But there's a reason why we feel that way about it. It's not that we're incapable of selling anything. It's not that we're incapable of doing what needs to be done. We have a psychological impediment that prevents us from writing a good book description, and that psychological impediment is that we don't want to be perceived as salespeople. It's not. It doesn't matter that we're selling. That's not what scares us. What scares us is how people perceive us when they're reading our sales copy, our book description. We don't want to be perceived as slimy or sleazy or a scoundrel. And the reason why we tend to think that way, that salespeople tend to be slimy and sleazy, is because we've all bought a car at some point in our life. And when you go to a car lot, most of us walk away from that experience thinking that the salesperson was slimy and sleazy because the guy sold us something he wanted us to buy instead of something we wanted to buy. And the reason is, I've sold a lot of things in my life. I sold books and coupon books and advertising and TVs and appliances and cars and services, you name it. I pretty much sold everything under the sun. And the thing of it is, when I went to the car lot, I worked for a car lot for 6 months. And when I went to the car lot, the sales manager took me aside after 2 or 3 days and said, "Now, Bill, I know you have experience selling all this other stuff, but I've got to tell you up front, because you don't seem to be clicking too well with selling cars, that there's something you're missing in this equation. You have people come on the lot and they tell you they have a shopping list of things they want from their car. They want a yellow car, they want a sunroof, they want 5-speed transmission, they want seating for 5, they want 4-door car, they want lots of trunk space in their vehicle, and you're taking that and processing it and realizing we don't have that car on the lot, so then you lose the sale and they go somewhere else. And when you're selling cars, what you need to understand is everybody who comes on this lot needs one thing. They need a car. That's all they need. They need a car. And secondarily, they need a car that they can afford to pay for. So when they come on the lot and they say they want a yellow car, they don't need a yellow car. They need a car. They don't need a sunroof. They need a car. They don't need a lot of trunk space. They need a car. So when they come onto the lot, your job isn't to give them what they want. It's to give them what we have in stock. And you're not, since you're commission sales, you only get paid when you sell cars. So you need to sell cars. And if you're going to sell cars, you have to put aside what that person told you when they came onto the lot. You can remember what they said, but you don't sell them what they want. You sell them what we have in stock. So if they say yellow car, sunroof, 5-speed, 4 doors, and a big trunk, you look at what we have in stock and figure out what is the closest thing I can give them to what they want. So when you realize you don't have a yellow car and you don't have one with a sunroof, you take them to the 5-speed that has 4 doors and a big trunk, and you try to sell them that car. And if they reject that car, then figure out what in their list is they are willing to compromise and what on their list they're not willing to compromise, and match the things they're not willing to compromise to something we have in stock. So you go over there and you realize, oh, the sunroof is non-negotiable, but the 4 doors is. So let me take you over this 2-door car that has a sunroof and talk about that car. And the whole thing is, it's a confrontational relationship. The relationship between the customer and the car salesperson is confrontational because there's a conflict in interest there. The salesperson is more interested in getting a sale and getting paid and filling his pockets with the commissions for that sale and the customer is more interested in getting what he wants. And so when you go onto the car lot and the customer has a list of what he wants fulfilled, and the salesperson, his job is not to give you what you want, but to figure out where you're willing to compromise your principles. If he can figure out where you are willing to compromise your principles, then he can get you into a car that you can drive off the lot today, and he will get paid. So that creates a conflict of interests and a conflict of the relationship that leaves people, even if they leave that particular car lot with a car, they are going to feel like they were cheated in the process because they did not get the car they wanted. They got the car that they were willing to compromise for. And that's the key point here. We're not giving people what they want. We're giving people what they're willing to compromise, what they're willing to buy after compromise. And that's why the car salesperson is looked down upon by so many consumers in the marketplace. And as a book author, that's the kind of person we don't want to be when we're selling our books to our readers. We do not want this stranger to perceive us as being as slimy as a car salesman, so therefore we go out of our way not to be pushy when we're writing our book description. And that hurts us because, one, we're not willing to do what it takes to be successful, and two, it hurts us because we don't have to be like the car salesman in order to sell our books. See what I'm saying here? Now, there's a different type of salesperson in the world. The different type of salesperson is customer-centric, customer-focused. And that person, they're not selling cars. They're not worried about selling what is on the lot. They're not worried about their own commission either, because they know if people make a buying decision, they're going to win either way. But instead of focusing on what the salesperson wants, they focus on what the customer wants. So they figure out what's on the customer's shopping list, and then give the customer exactly what the customer wants. And then in that process, they move the selling from the salesperson to the customer. We let the customer sell themselves. And by doing it this different way, we focus on what the customer wants. We let the customer sell themselves on your product. The customer will have questions about your product. They'll ask those questions. You'll answer them. And when it's time to do the transaction, it's not a situation of the car salesman where, okay, we sit down at the desk and we need to do a contract up, and you have compromised the yellow car, and you have compromised the sunroof, and you've compromised the large trunk space to get this car that you are willing to accept. So go ahead and sign this contract and we'll send you home with that car. It's not that situation at all. With the other type of salesman, their only goal is to find out what you want, point you to a product that is what you want, answer your questions, and get out of the way and let you make a buying decision. It's entirely up to the customer to buy. It's not up to the salesman to sell. And that's the distinction we want to make here. You want customers to buy from you, not for you to sell to customers. And the selling part is what comes across as sleazy, because it's perceived that the customer is going to get screwed in the process. And you don't want to screw your customer in the process. You want to give your customer exactly what they want. So that's the mind shift that we need you to take when you're writing your book descriptions. Stop selling books and give people the tools and resources they need to make a good buying decision. Let them buy your product instead of you selling your product. And that's the first step towards getting to that point where we want to be, where we're selling more books. So once we understand what the customer needs, then we can write the kind of book description that leads those people to make a purchase of our books. And in a lot of cases, a lot of books have a crappy book description on them, usually because the writer didn't think too much about it and they just threw something together real quickly, without giving much consideration to what the customer actually wants. And what we're wanting you to do is rearrange it and figure out what the customer wants and then give them exactly what they want. So you write the book description in such a way that they realize that they want to buy your book. And then you get out of the way and let them buy the book. And that's what we're leading towards here. So with a fiction book, generally, what we want to do is create empathy in our character, our main character. We want to create empathy for the situation that the main character has found himself in. And that's going to lead people to want to buy the book. On the nonfiction side, we have to address it from a problem standpoint, problem solution. You have a problem and I can help solve that problem. And so here's your problem explained in great detail so you understand the solution that I'm going to give you. And once you understand the problem and the solution, then you understand that I can give you the solution you need, so therefore you do want to buy my book. But whether it's fiction or nonfiction, the same thing applies. We want to provide the customer enough material, enough information that they can make a good buying decision. We're not selling them a book, we're letting them buy a book. And that's the thing. People love to buy, but they don't like being sold to. And that's what we're going to be teaching in the handshake method training, the handshake method class. Rob Howard and I have both been doing sales for a long time. We've been doing sales copy for a long time. We know what it takes to move product. And so that's what we're going to teach in the handshake method class. It's a whole class devoted to how to write your book descriptions in such a way that people are going to be knocking themselves silly to buy your books. And the people who've gone through this training have all reported. We've worked with clients through coaching deals and so on and so forth, and people have almost to the person have come back and said, yes, we are selling more books now. It did work for us. And that's what we're going to teach you in the handshake method class. And the first part of it is understanding the difference between the used car salesman and the person who enables you to buy their products. And for you to understand that you have a choice whether you're going to be the pushy salesman or whether you're going to be the guy who, or the person who helps a customer make a good buying decision. So it's just in how you present your information. And there are certain techniques we can use when we're writing those book descriptions that's going to enable people to understand what your book is about, why they want to buy it, and answer any lingering questions they might have about your book so that they can go ahead and make that buying decision without even looking at the reviews. And if you can accomplish this, and it's pretty straightforward, you spent however long writing your book, please spend more than 10 minutes writing your book description. It doesn't take much time to actually do this, but once you've written your book description in the method we're describing, selling books comes second nature. The sales come because you're answering the needs of your customers, and that's the important distinction here. So if you would like to learn more about this very important topic, and you would like to sell more books, I encourage you to visit authorbooktraining.com/handshake and register for Rob Howard and I's class, the handshake method, and let us teach you more about how to write a book description that will help you sell more books. So with that, I'm going to close for tonight, but thank you very much for paying attention, and I hope you got something out of this. I think you did. I think there's a lot you could have gotten out of this even if you don't take the class. But if you take the class, you'll get so much more, and I do want to encourage you to at least consider our offer for the handshake method class, because I've just barely scratched the surface at this point. If you found what you've heard in the last 20 minutes interesting, you'll definitely find our class to be even more interesting. So thank you very much. This is Bill Platt. Until next time.